Hi guys, Shane here, Oz Flight Simmer. Welcome to another episode of Test Drive. This is where we take an add-on, a scenery or an aircraft and we actually take it for a spin around the block and I'll give you my first impressions. Today we're looking at Just Flight's recently released C-46, made famous in recent years, or the C-46 is by ICE pilots with Buffalo Airways. So we're going to take a look around the aircraft, just having a look at the radial engines there and the chips on the props. All in all, the aircraft from the outside looks pretty good from a distance away. I really like the tyre markings there. As you can see, the square tread marks. We are in the Pan Am Air livery. There's many different variants with this aircraft and many different liveries. I think there's 3 different variants, which is military, cargo, and civilian. This aircraft was mainly used obviously early in peace it was a military aircraft, but later on in life was used as civilian passenger aircraft. So just taking a closer look at the tyres and the undercarriage. It's got the oil stains there, but sort of finding as you get closer in to the aircraft there, the textures aren't that high, or yeah, they don't seem to be really high def, like all their little extra specialty ones like the oil stains and things like that. But from a distance, it looks quite good. As we come back down, you can see some oil stains. Looks like that's railing with a door opening, but I can't get it to open. Just Flight's mentioned it has HD textures and used to produce the highest possible texture clarity, including a bump and spectacular mapping for a truly 3D feel. So it looks quite good. With this variant here though, it looks like it's been looked after, but I don't really see that there's any dints or anything like that that you'd think you would see with older aircraft. So they're sort of gone for, a couple of years out of the factory type look, I think. All the hatches and the doors are automated, so you can see I've got the back passenger door there. You've got some seats there, and I've got the front one open. I've actually had this aircraft for quite a while now. I did play around with it early on in the piece, had some trouble. I'll tell you about that shortly when we get in the cockpit, but able to get it up and running now so we can actually do a flight and a bit of a test drive. So within saying that, she looks pretty good from the outside. Let's take a look of the inside. So welcome to the cockpit. We'll take a bit of an in-depth look at the look and feel of the cockpit a little bit later in the test drive episode. But like I was saying before, I've had this for a couple of weeks and I haven't done an update. I haven't changed the version. It's the same version, but for the life of me, I could not get this thing started. Could only get the right engine started, and I would follow exactly the same process, and I couldn't get the left engine started. But I've jumped back in the aircraft to do the review. I thought I'd give it a try without doing any updates. I'm not sure if there is an update or not, and for some reason I'm doing the same thing and it's working now. So I'm just going to go through the process a little bit so we can get it started up, because when you do get the engine started up, it does sound good. So that put a hold on me flying this aircraft for a couple of weeks because it was quite annoying, but for some reason it seems to be working okay. So we'll just go through the startup process. We are in Pago, and we'll be flying to Corfu today, which is about 100 nautical miles. About ready to start engine. The right engines. So right engine is humming along, and we'll follow the same process for the left engine. And by all knows means this is not a study level aircraft. There's quite a lot of buttons that don't work or don't do the right function, but that's okay. They're not claiming for this to be a study level aircraft, so I knew that when I was getting into purchasing it. So yeah, starting the left engine. So both engines up and are running. I do like the sound of the cough and the spit as the engines come to life, which is really cool. So within saying that, let's get ready for taxi, get the aircraft prepared, and we'll be on our way. Welcome to the runway. We are set and ready to go. For the first time in the history of the test drive videos, I haven't been able to show you a taxi, and the reason for that is I couldn't taxi the thing. I've read the manuals and everything like that. It would taxi to the left, but it wouldn't taxi to the right. It wouldn't turn to the right there. So I've checked everything, nothing on my end. It is just playing up, and it was really frustrating. So I've just had to cut it to the start of the runway to continue the test drive. So again, if you're new to these videos, these test drives are my first impression. So if something goes wrong or I mess up the landing on anything like that, I'm not going to edit those out. I'm actually going to show you my experience with particular aircraft. But that's the first time for me that I haven't been able to do any taxiing on a test drive video. But within saying that, we are ready for takeoff with the R2-800 Rolls radial engines. This thing's got a bit of horsepower, so I'm expecting that it won't need to have much runway to take off, and that's why we're landing at Corfu, because it's a short runway, and it's going to be interesting. More like a dangerous landings video, but I'll be quiet now and enjoy. Well, that popped up pretty quick. I only had 75% throttle, and she still flew down the runway and took off quite quickly. And we have got the tanks are full, so full of fuel. So we're going to turn on to our course heading, and we'll get the autopilot on. But firstly, I'll show you as we're leaving Pago a view of the C-46 outside. Welcome back to the cockpit. Autopilot is set up, and it is pretty easy to use. You basically can put it in nav mode, the autopilot GPS will take over, and you can manually do your pitch, or you can get the autopilot to do 500, 600 vert speed, or whatever you want to do. So it didn't take much of that to work out, but because it's not a study level aircraft, once you're sort of in cruising or near the top of climb, there is not too much to do. So within saying that, we'll take a look of the aircraft. So just panning around, my first initial thoughts is, from a distance and stepping back, the cockpit looks quite good. So I like the look that they've actually done. But if you have a look at the textures on the flooring and on the panel there, sorry, not the panel, on the throttle quadrant, and even the hoses coming in there and the top part, it's not very high def. So when you're sitting in the cockpit, it really loses the immersial feel for me. So I'm not sure if that's oil stains or just water stains there on that piping, but it just doesn't look good. So it's not high quality enough textures. The wheel looks absolutely fantastic, and just even the paint chipping off the rail there on the seat there, it just to me, it's not polished enough, and it's not, yeah, it's just the resolution's not there. But there's other parts where on the dash looks quite good, and some of the functions and the buttons are quite good, but overall it just loses that feel. So we've been saying that. We'll turn around and we'll duck in and we'll take a look at the cabin. So we're in the back of the cabin where all the fun happens with the passengers. Pretty basic stuff here. So obviously it's really modeled just so you can look inside from an outside view. And the reason why I'm thinking that is, if you take a look at the back chairs there, they're the only ones that are actually modeled with the frame of the actual chair and seat belts. And that's because when the door opens you can actually see through. So pretty basic stuff, not that we spend any time here. It's good to see that they've actually modeled the seats so you can see through, but yeah, we'll just duck into the cockpit, and just want to go back and show you what I mean by it looks good from a distance, but as you get close the textures are a bit bland. There we go. But anyways, I believe it's time for a montage, and then we'll start to descend for Kafoo. Alrighty, so we are powering on, about to start our descent, so we'll organise that on autopilot. I will have to say, because it's basic aircraft, it's good for short flights. I wouldn't do anything any more than, you know, maybe 200 nautical miles, because you might get a bit bored with not many systems to use and buttons to click. But I have probably messed up the approach a little bit, because I think Kafoo is a little bit too close, so we might have to do some circle work, but that's alright. It'll give me a chance to check the manoeuvring out. But I'll come back to you as we're about to land, and it will be interesting because it's a very short and narrow runway. Probably not the best aircraft, but this one should be able to stop on a dime. But as I can't use my steering correctly, it'll be interesting to see what happens. We are back on our approach, so gears are down, all the flaps are down so we can slow as much as possible. This is Kafoo, it's part of the Pago Orbex scenery. But manoeuvring around was pretty easy. She's obviously quite sluggish because it's a big aircraft. It can slightly get away with you, but you know, pretty sort of basic stuff, but you know, it will turn. It's easy to, let's say it's easy to navigate. But like I said, gears are down, flaps are down. I didn't show that on the footage because you can't hear them coming down anyway over the engine noise, but I'll be quiet now and enjoy the messy landing. Well, that was interesting, coming in a little bit too slow. I pretty much think I landed on all three gears, what not to do. But I'm veering off to the left of the runway is because I've got my rudder pedals all the way down to steer the aircraft over, and using differential brakes, any technique, and it's only just starting to do it now. So, interesting. But we'll try to venture down to the end of the runway and My aim is to try to turn it around, but I don't think it's going to happen. And we'll shut it down. But with been saying that, we better have a look at a replay. So we just made it by a skin of our teeth there. You can actually get the C-46 in all versions of Prepared, Steam Edition for FSX, and Classic, retailing around about $37.99 Australian. My overall thoughts would be it's a pretty basic. If you're a C-46 fan, you'd probably want to get it. If you're not, might be worth keeping your pennies in your pocket and looking for something else. Thank you very much for watching. I'm FTX Simmer. I'll see you on the next video. Cheers.